Hi there, this is Llarold, and today I've got a guide for the re-released Mage Tower challenge for Guardian Druid. I've put up guides for all of the tanks now. The monk video is the long-form video guide complete with all of the details of the boss's abilities, so check that out if you want a really in-depth look. You can also look at the written guides I made for Brewmaster and Prot Warrior on Wowhead if you feel like reading. The main point of this video, just like it was for the Warrior and DH videos, is to go over the basics, give some quick tips on what helped me break through and get the kill, and then show the whole kill. This one will be a bit longer than everything except for the monk video, because this is easily the hardest of the 6 Mage Tower tank encounters. It's also the one with the best reward, at least in my opinion. I don't want to psych anybody out here, it's not impossible, but unless you're extremely comfortable on a bear druid, you will need a bit of trial and error and thinking outside the box to clear this challenge. Phase 1 involves a lot of Moonkin form play, which is very weird for a tank challenge. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. This is the talent setup that I ran. I would say there is absolutely zero wiggle room here at all. You really want Balance Affinity and Heart of the Wild for the range damage it's going to provide while fighting Inquisitor Varus. I have seen some videos of some players making pretty clever usage of Wild Charge and Balance Form to move around the room and deal with mechanics like leaping backwards over the lines in Phase 2. That's pretty cool. I only ever used it to charge in bear form, but that is extremely useful, especially if you get clipped by any of the many knockbacks in this fight. Having Brambles and Survival of the Fittest is nice as well. While there's some value in the nearby talents in those 2 rows, being able to use Barkskin as a quick AoE DPS tool to help take down packs of nether horrors is very powerful, and having Barkskin up more often to deal with Cruel's Annihilates is also important. Now let's move on to gear, and I really didn't do anything fancy here. In terms of trinkets, I used my standard current defensive setup of Splintered Heart of Alar from Castle Nathria and Shard of Anhilda's Aegis from Sanctum of Domination. I want to be clear, I really think that Shard is not good for this scaled down encounter, and I would not recommend it, but I desperately needed an on-use defensive trinket, and it's all I have. I would recommend running a blood-spattered scale from the other side instead of Shard, if you have one, which I don't, or potentially even just a stat stick or a DPS trinket. I would say this is something you'll just have to figure out with a bit of trial and error and gauging where your DPS is. I spent the majority of my pulls running DPS trinkets from old expansions, specifically a pocket-sized computation device with Cyclotronic Blast, but even with offensive trinkets, I still consistently managed to push into Phase 2 with 2 Infernals active. If I had gotten enough damage to be able to skip the second one, I think that offensive trinkets would have been worth wearing, but instead I just kept pushing at the worst possible times. Nether horrors would have just spawned, and then the second I killed them, another set would spawn and overrun me while Cruel was just coming down and starting to beat on me. Once I switched to purely defensive trinkets, I found that despite pushing into the next phase a little slower, I pushed at less hectic moments than I did during the time where I was running offensive trinkets. Also, just as a quick note, Potion of Unbridled Fury, the relatively inexpensive BFA damage potion, will add substantially more damage than Shadowlands potions do, so I highly recommend those. I did not use them for this challenge. I do wonder if running all offense and then also using those, I might have been able to beat the second Infernal in Phase 1. Don't know, but it's worth testing, I would say. Alright, Phase 1 mechanic time. I spent as much time as I could manage in Moonkin form during Phase 1. I open by using Heart of the Wild before Varus becomes attackable. I slam him with as much spell damage as I possibly can until Nether Horrors spawn. Whenever any ads spawn and I'm having to tank them, I am in bear form, pretty much that the whole time. I try to hit all of the ads that spawn with a quick Moonfire. That goes for the entire fight. Generally speaking, I'm just trying to AoE everything down as quickly as possible. I think at the start of Phase 1, I'm holding Barkskin until ads come out so that I can use it as sort of a miniature AoE DPS cooldown, and that kinda continues for most of the rest of the fight, although there are some spots in Phase 2 where you might want that Barkskin as an actual defensive cooldown for Cruel. Anyways, on to nether horrors specifically, I scooped them all up with Thrash and Moonfire and Barkskin and Swipe and so on. I killed this prior to the hotfix that made nether horrors a lot easier, and I would say that half of my wipes were to mistiming the CC on them, which is now not really a problem. Now, when they begin casting their nether storm, you can interrupt them with incapacitating roar at any point, and that will prevent them from getting the cast off. Before, you had to let them start channeling, then interrupt them before they got any ticks of damage off. That had an extremely tiny window, like a tenth of a second. It sucked, but now it's really not that bad. I would say I used a lot of Velen's orbs during this fight just to disrupt nether storm casts, which is annoying, but you know, that's okay. Velen's orbs do time out after, I don't know, a couple of minutes, so you kind of have to just use them or lose them. Basically burn the little guys down as quickly as you can. Whenever they're not up during phase 1, you should pretty much just be in caster form trying to slam Varus with as much damage as you can. Moonfire the eyes to kill them. You can hit them with Sunfire too, I guess, but mostly you just want to be slamming Varus. Dodge the slams from the Infernals. Try to get into phase 2 as quickly as you possibly can, but be sure to kill any nether horrors that are up before you make that transition, since Cruel likes to come down, attack you, and then very quickly spawn a pack of new nether horrors to come get you right at the start of phase 2. And on to phase 2. Interrupting Cruel's Twisted Reflection is very important, as it will cause him to heal every time he attacks you. This is bad. Basically a wipe. I've been told that picking one up, Velen's orbs up, will dispel that, and I know that was true back in Legion, but I've also been told that it's not true in the Timewalking version. I don't know who to believe, and I haven't let him cast it on me to test it, so I don't know. I just kicked it, and you should too. Cruel's flame pools on the ground can be pretty dangerous on a druid since your mobility is relatively low. You have Stampeding Roar, and you should use that if you're struggling to get out. Like if he stomps one directly on top of you, you probably should Stampeding Roar to get out immediately. You know, be ready throughout phase 2 to use Wild Charge or Goblin Gliders if you get knocked back by Infernals. Cruel's Annihilate debuff is really dangerous, and once you get to 2 stacks, you'll absolutely need major defensive cooldowns for each cast to survive. So just to go over my defensive cooldown rotation, if you will, for the Annihilate casts. For the first one, I do find that Iron Fur is all you need. All of this is going to be based on the idea that you're at or very close to full health when you get hit with the Annihilate, which, you know, you should be. Use either Velen's orbs to heal yourself up as he's prepping to cast. That'll buy you a little bit of extra time as well. Or Frenzied Regen will also do the trick to get your health back up. For the second cast, I recommend using Barkskin. But since you probably will be using Barkskin as an offensive cooldown to deal with nether horrors, it may not be active. If you're at full health and you have multiple stacks of Iron Fur, or maybe a defensive trinket as well as a couple of stacks of Iron Fur, surviving the second cast should not be that difficult. Just be ready to use Frenzied Regen immediately as it hits you, because your health will probably be pretty low. For the next 2 casts, you should use Survival Instincts if it's available. That's cast 3 and 4. I used my defensive trinket alone for the third cast without Survival Instincts, and I think I lived with like 800 health, which was very scary. For the fourth cast, I was actually a little slow on hitting Survival Instincts, and I procced my Cheat Death trinket, which I guess that's why I was wearing it. I think with a Cheat Death trinket, but you haven't already procced, and a decent defensive cooldown like Barkskin or Survival Instincts, you could survive a 5th cast, but I would recommend just trying to kill him beforehand. As a general rule throughout phase 2, you can use Velen's orbs to delay Annihilate casts by a few seconds, and having 100% health before each cast is extremely valuable. I prefer waiting until I have ads gathered close to Cruel before I hit one of Velen's orbs. This way you'll have several seconds to freely AoE them down, you know, just hitting Thrash and Swipe as much as you can for the most part, and that's usually enough. Alright, that's it. I'm going to play the kill in its entirety now. Ask questions if you have any, like and subscribe, you know the drill. Good luck with it, Mage Tower, and thanks for watching. Bye.
Arrogant fools! I am empowered by the souls of 1,000 conquered worlds. Even a fraction of my power will be enough to destroy you. Not so fast. Varys, dispose of this rabble.
I will mend your wounds. Look always to the light.
Infinite, our numbers are endless. Bow before the might of the Burning Legion!
We will never bow!
You must stand strong, champion. Do not give up.
Ha! You are all that remains. There is no hope, fools. No one is coming to save you.
It is you who are alone, crew.
This is not
Your time has
possible.
come.
This is not possible. So be it. You will not stand in our way any longer. Behold the wrath of Druid!
He is overloading himself with power. Look out!